Welcome. How is it going? It is July 24th, 2024. This is the RambleCast. I'm your host, Cody Toombs. I'm going it solo today. There's no Corbin Davenports around. Yeah, poor guy didn't make it. It's sad. It's real sad. He will be missed. He is survived by everyone else who's living. Yeah, it's tragic, truly tragic. But we shall soldier on. And don't anybody ask what happened to him. Look, it's not my place to say, and I think his family would be deeply embarrassed. Deeply embarrassed. Oh my God, the things that would come out. It's look, we should not cancel the poor guy just because he did those things. And that search history is wow. Anyway, so how's it going, Austin? Metric Brawl, Claw, what is up, you fine people? So things to talk about today. There's stuff. I think I'm gonna start with, actually, I didn't really organize these too well, but there's not a lot of topics. You're doing a very stupid, Brawl. Don't tell me you're installing Windows XP again. Or worse, are you installing Vista? Don't install Vista. Are you installing Vista to a smartwatch? I feel like that's something you would do. Okay, anyway. That's smart compared to what you're doing. Oh boy. I believe you. I actually do believe you. Okay, so let's see. Let's think actually we'll roll into this order. I don't know that that makes sense, but let's talk first about going places. More specifically, let's talk about going places after you've looked them up on Apple Maps. Yeah, that was actually probably the worst transition intro I've done in forever. Yeah, anyway, so Apple Maps, in their infinite wisdom, have launched a web interface. So it is Apple Maps on the web. This is a thing. You can now go to it. In fact, it's funny I say that because I have not actually loaded it before. But it does, in fact, show maps. It's basically just like Google Maps, except looks a little different. Their rendering is different. But otherwise, yeah, there's, not a whole lot of difference here. It's the same basic thing, except, directions are less reliable. And I know that is a low blow, but it's also, let's be honest, it's an accurate blow. So yeah, this is Apple Maps. I think, well, look, this is something technically that already kind of existed. You could already link out to Apple Maps using a few different things, and you could kind of see something similar to this if you followed it the right way. But now it's actually a real thing that you can use just like Google Maps. Should you? I mean, it's up to you. In truth, I think at this stage, Apple Maps is probably about as reliable as it needs to be. Is it as good as Google Maps? I'm guessing probably not quite. But hey, this is sort of like comparing two competing processors made in the last year. As long as it's not one of the Intel chips that evidently has oxidation problems in the manufacturing process, which, by the way, if for anyone who hasn't heard about that, that is bad. That's real bad times. But as long as it's not something like that, the fact of the matter is most comparable chips are in fact pretty comparable. And year over year differences don't make a big difference. And at this stage, when you're talking about online maps, look, the world doesn't change that much anymore, physically speaking. The roads are mostly not going to change. The businesses at specific locations might change a little bit, but a lot of them really don't. You get a lot of similarities from one to the next. Or like 1 year to the next. There's relatively small turnover in the businesses. So yeah, mapping kind of not that hard to do once you reach a certain level of accuracy. Let's see, Metric Brawl. Your Intel Celeron laptop is thermal throttling on the desktop. Let's install Minecraft with the most extreme shaders made, and let's see it suffer. All right, so somebody called the fire department for Brawl. That's probably going to be an issue. Is that why iOS 6 Apple Maps is back? Yes, it is. The one question I would really have about this is how comparable is it with things like public transit, subways, buses, anything along those lines? Because that's one place where Google Maps got really good, and I know Apple Maps does implement it, but last I heard, which admittedly has been a while, Apple was pretty far behind. So, it's still, I think a lot of people are probably only going to be using Apple Maps if they don't need a whole lot, or if they're more Apple loyalists. I don't expect a lot of people to be turning this direction if they need like the latest and best results. And if you're just choosing one to the other, that's probably the better op. It's probably still better going with Google Maps. That being said, also, I know I'm being a little hard on Apple Maps, but I'm also going to throw it the other direction. Cheers. I'm glad they're doing this. I actually think it's a good thing. Because, hey, competition is great. Always happy to see Google Maps maybe take a little bit of competition that'll push them to improve. And in general, I also, in the interest of keeping each company honest, it is better if we see some competition from the other big players. And likewise, maybe Apple will bring new things to the market that actually make this either the better option, or will at least drive all of the competitors to also introduce new features that are significant improvements. Somehow, some way it's working. It goes from 0 to 10 FPS while in a dark 2x2 hole. I'm gonna leave that alone. And that's stock Minecraft. Now let's make it cry. Jeez. This is gonna be like running Crysis back in 2007. But anyway, so again, good for Apple. Anytime they open stuff up to the rest of the world, even if it's obviously still meant just to attract new users, or just to appeal to people who kind of get mad about Apple and how closed off they tend to be, I'm still going to call it a good thing, because yay, please bring more stuff out into the world, even if it's not directly helping you with your lock-in campaign. All right. Anyway, speaking of lock-in campaigns, they're almost RTX shaders. Oh boy. It's an Intel UHD 600i GPU. Wow. You sure you're not trying to burn down your house? You heard Apple Maps is better than Google Maps for transit in certain cities? Maybe it is. I have I've not heard that, but I also wouldn't rule it out. There's every possibility of it. Anyway, yeah, it is interesting, and I'd kind of like to see a comparison. Now that I think about it, I've never because there's so few cities that actually have like good mass transit, at least in the U.S. It would be interesting to see a comparison that shows not just how much transit information they show, but how accurate and consistent it is. Because that could also show how good the mass transit is in those cities. But yeah, anyway, speaking of lock-in, let's talk about Reddit. Reddit, it's a thing. It happened. Reddit has decided, by the way, not that it's super important, but let's just copy the links for these articles and drop them into chat. And I just pulled from The Verge for everything today, just because convenience. You thermal throttled so hard it shut down. At that point, I don't know that you so call it thermal throttling. That's pretty much that's a panic. But anyway, yeah, so Reddit is now blocking search engines and AI bots. Strictly speaking, they were already kind of blocking AI bots. There's a bit of a older story that had already happened. But now, if you try looking on any search engine other than Google, Reddit is basically just going to give you older results. Not to say that you won't get some newer results, but for the most part, it's only going to show you the results that are older than... Actually, I don't know how much older. I think it's just from the last few weeks. But, yeah, now the deal is that Google is the only search engine so far, and this may change, but Google is the only search engine that is able to get the newest results out of Reddit pages. And this isn't by mistake. At least that's what's believed. It died because Windows Update. Oh geez. Wow. Windows Update. Yeah, never fails. Metric Brawl will one day be the director of the Windows Museum. Only if they can take the job away from oh, I can't think of the guy's name. I was gonna mock that hard Windows shill that oh, what's his name? I can't think of it. Well, I shouldn't call him a Windows shill. He's a Microsoft shill. But whatever. So anyway. No, not Dave Plummer. No. Somebody, I want to say it was Austin actually, once said that I look like this guy or I talk like him. He's a sort of writer. I know he does some podcasting. And just because it's funny, apparently he talks or writes a lot of articles about his house in Mexico, which is really bizarre. And these are usually along the same times as he's complaining that his patrons do not pay him enough, which is kind of funny when he's complaining about his second house in Mexico in various ways. And it's like, really? Really? You don't get paid enough? Okay. Anyway, Google is still better than Reddit search feature. Yeah. Oh, 100%. Reddit search feature is like using WordPress search. It's terrible. It's thermal throttling with Chrome open. Of course it is. You've used Chrome. You know the deal. Anyway, so reportedly, the reason for this new behavior is that Google has paid, I believe it was $60 million. Is that the correct amount? Did I scroll past it. Yeah. So, reportedly, Google has struck a $60 million deal that will give them access to basically all of Reddit to act as training data. Now, whether or not, or the specifics of this were not really handed out, so there may be a lot more to this deal, but fundamentally, it's exactly that. Google wants all of Reddit's threads and data so that it can be used for training various AI tools. Now, with that said, one, I'm just going to be one of those people who again argues, please, if you're going to copy anything, maybe not Reddit, because wow, do we really need racist AI bots and also blatant trolling? But also at the same time, cheers, let's see all those AI bots get trolled. I kind of like that. It's good comedy. And yeah, Austin, exactly. And yeah, that's something I was going to say. At 60 million is a really high price tag until you factor in that for as long as Google is the only one who's doing this, that is a deal. You just guaranteed a whole ton of users, at least once they hear about this, are going to turn around and stop using Bing. They're going to stop using DuckDuckGo. They're going to stop using it, basically everything else, because a lot of people care about what gets posted on Reddit. Whether or not any individual does, debatable. But there's a lot of people who really do care about getting Reddit threads as resulting Google. In my own personal experience, I definitely see Reddit popping up a lot, but it's amazing how often the results are from years and years ago on almost anything I search, even things that should be very, very current. In that sense, I'm not sure Google is the best at coming up with results, but most others aren't either. So, you know, it is what it is. Anyway, this is an interesting position for Google to be in. It gives them obviously some exclusivity. It's going to definitely drive more traffic through Google because exactly like Carson said, the search engine on Reddit is hot garbage. Like, it's really bad. You will not really find what you're looking for half the time. And even if you can find what you're looking for, you probably have to make multiple searches to get there, or you have to filter it to specific subs or whatever. Like, chances are you had to jump through some hoops to get to whatever it is you wanted to find, because it's amazing how often Reddit search just comes up with completely irrelevant and unimportant threads. Brawl, using Reddit as a win and a lose. Agreed. As opposed to Twitter, where it's all lose. You ran Minecraft at its highest with a loader that boosts FPS. Should you do it with vanilla Minecraft? I feel like you're just trying to burn this thing live, but yes, obviously you should do that. Let's see. One of these days, nobody can see what's going on, but macOS has this really bizarre bug with Finder that every once in a while takes away your ability to minimize windows, and it happens every week with the window that I specifically use for or I keep open so that I can start music. And for whatever reason, it always takes a lot of tinkering to get it back. Okay, just got it. There. Now I can minimize that window. Cool. Anyway, so the specifics of this, as always, are vague. I doubt we're ever really going to find out too much more. My question is, are they expecting $60 million payouts from Microsoft and anybody else that wants access? Or is this going to be a situation where maybe they cut different deals for different companies? Like at this stage, you know, should they be hitting DuckDuckGo for the same full amount? Probably not. Let's be honest. DuckDuckGo is not the sort of thing where it makes sense to demand that they pay the same amount just for data that they're going to return in the search engine, whereas Google and Microsoft would both want to train AI models on it. But at the same time, is DuckDuckGo actually sitting there going, yeah, we absolutely care and are going to spend millions and millions of dollars just so we can access your search engine? Honestly, I think DuckDuckGo is sitting there going, yeah, no, you guys work your way into irrelevance. We're happy to let you. And likewise, I do wonder if the investors, I'm sure some investors are going to look at this and say, ooh, hey, they found a way to make money. Yay for them. And they'll be happy about this. I think there are other investors who, at least more long-term oriented investors, they're probably looking at this situation saying, yeah, but aren't you costing yourself views? Like, are people going to visit you as often if they feel like you're becoming it? Like, if you're making yourselves less relevant, is that the sort of thing that's really going to help you? We'll see. So anyway, oh yeah, you were also rubbing alcohol on the CPU die itself and it's still alive. Okay. Now I'm really wondering what's going on here. Because you very literally could set fire. Like, I was joking before, but rubbing alcohol onto a thing that gets hot enough to definitely ignite that alcohol. I know the alcohol, surely, I'm assuming you're not putting enough on there that there's any reasonable quantity, but some part of me is worried that you actually might be setting fire to it. Which is not a good thing to do, but also I'm going to laugh if you do. It's a small bottle. That doesn't technically matter. Realistically, I'm assuming it's drying quickly enough and you're only using just enough to like cover a surface, and then it, like, alcohol like that evaporates pretty quickly. But there's also that oddball possibility that you're using more than enough. Regardless, seriously, I know that this is irrelevant in this moment, but I just seen yet another notification that an a-hole on Nextdoor is reposting the same thing again, because he doesn't understand that all he's doing is spamming and making people not want him to post. Totally irrelevant, I know, but like at this stage, I kind of genuinely want to tell him to STFU. Anyway, so random side notes. Anyway, so good for Reddit, I guess. Go get your bag, but also this feels like Reddit kind of shunning the open web even more than it already has, and we're closing in on the days that Reddit turns into Twitter, which it already kind of is when you think about it. Like, these are the same steps Twitter is taking, shutting out like non-accounts. If you don't have an account, you basically can't browse Twitter. The sort of perpetual lean into slightly right-wing stuff which is becoming not so slight with Twitter, and Reddit has had that problem for a long time anyway. So, yeah, Reddit is following in the footsteps of Twitter. All right. Anyway, so, man, I'm just getting notifications left and right. So, let's see. Next up, may as well talk about it. We knew it was coming. Let's talk a little bit about Google TV Streamer. This is the strangest subplot ever in chat. You know what? No, it's not. We've had weirder. We really have. Sometimes I do think, though, it'd be kind of funny just to set, like, an overhead cam on Brawl's desk. Just to record this. Like, get a time lapse of this stuff happening. And not a fast... Or, sorry, not one of those high-speed time lapses. We're talking just, like, one shot every second or something. 1 frame per second. Just because... once that thing goes on, once that lights up, once the fire starts, I think we want to be able to see a decent amount of the detail as it's happening. I don't think we want to have the, you know, like a frame every 5 seconds or 10 seconds or a frame every minute, because we wouldn't catch enough of it. It would just, 1 second the desk is looking normal, another second you've got something that looks kind of like a big flash, and the next second it's just pure white. And 1 second later, the desk is like just a burned, charred relic. It's actually running at 1 frame per second. Nice coincidence. Oh boy. You're running it on your bed? Okay, not even joking. For real. Get it off of there. I'm not kidding at all. That's actually a really bad idea. You actually will very possibly set a fire. Because that is such a bad place for really hot electronics to be. Oh man, no, it's, not even joking. For real, get that off the bed. We're gonna turn on the news, and the story's gonna be that a huge fire has broken out in Romania. Okay, anyway. It's 102% too much bed for fires. Yeah, pretty much. Dude, you're... Wow. Okay, so anyway. I don't even know what to make of this. Austin, you might be right. This is slowly becoming... the strangest subplot. It's running on 0.9 volts. Oh jeez. This is turning bad so fast. Anyway, so let's talk about the Google TV Streamer. We've been talking about it in Discord. This is not so I feel like this is mostly just kind of bringing it up on here to bring it up on here. And I freely admit, I was kind of expecting to have Corbin here to talk with me about this one. But, yeah, he's no longer amongst the living. He will likely be resurrected by next week. So, you know, cheers to that. But in the meantime... Let's talk about this one solo. Might I also add that the CPU is cooled by nothing but a copper plate with no thermal paste? I mean, at that point, it's not even cooling. I'm sure the copper plate is warming up some, but that's not cooling it. That's you're just transferring a tiny bit of heat. If anything, that's actually more likely to cause the processor to crack, or the CPU, because the housing on it is probably getting imbalanced temperature relief. So some of it is going to expand more than other parts of it. You actually could just end up cracking the die. The plastic shell on the keys are hot. Seriously. Yeah, this thing will be no good in somewhere in the next 24 hours. Windows is adding features. Jeez. Okay. Anyway, so Google TV Streamer. Wow. This stream is going so far off the rails. Google TV Streamer. This is the rumored and almost certain to be next streaming device. It will be part of not by name, but it will be presumably part of the Chromecast family. And for the first time since the Nexus TV, it's going to be a set-top box. Well, technically, some of the ADT devices that came later also were set-top boxes, but at least in terms of what's shipping from Google in final product form, this will be the first since the Nexus player. Okay, yeah, get on a multiplayer server. I don't even have to dare you. I knew the minute you typed it, you were obviously going to do it. And honestly, I don't think it's going to make any difference to the heat. All it's going to do is kill your frame rates even further. But anyway, so the Google TV Streamer. I'm just going to start by saying it, and I said it earlier today. The name screams to me that this probably is not a pro device. This is probably meant as more of a thing for, well, it's going to be probably a relatively low spec streaming box. I don't think that it's going to be the sort of thing where you're expected to play a lot of games on it. Obviously, you could use some sort of streamed games, and I'm not doubting for a second it will play games. But I don't think it's going to be spec'd up enough to be a high-end gaming device. So this is not about to compete with a Nintendo Switch or an Xbox or PlayStation. This is going to be basically, at least I'm expecting, this is going to be a lot more like, you know what? I don't even want to compare it to an Apple TV. This is basically just going to be another Chromecast. Well, Chromecast with Google TV, but it's going to be on the lower spec end. That said, change of shape. They got rid of the dongle. They're going with a set-top box that is kind of big on the very wide shape and design kind of thing. We can see that it slants forward. AIM Logic S90 5x5. It'll have AV1, and that's all Google really cares about. Yeah, that's pretty much true. So, yeah, it'll be more efficient at playing YouTube, and if I recall, isn't Netflix also doing AV1 now? It's so warm you don't even have to feel or touch it to feel the heat. Dude, you are actually setting a fire. It's really not joking. You actually are setting a fire. It hasn't started yet, but it's gonna happen. So anyway, this the set-top box, it looks like it would be perfectly sized to have ports on the back. And I feel like it's not a mistake that they chose to shape it the way they did, and the only picture we have does not show the back. That said, I really don't think that this is going to be a port monster. I don't think that the back of it is going to look in any way, shape, or form like the back of a computer. Or it's not going to be a router back there. We're not going to see a bunch of network ports. We're not going to see a ton of inputs or outputs. I think we're going to see HDMI out, obviously. We're going to see power. I'm willing to go with the possibility that they will have a built-in Ethernet jack. I don't think it's going to be crazy, but you know, if they put in an Ethernet jack, that would be nice, because you can put that sort of thing into the power cord, but that is debatable on whether or not that's ideal. In some ways, that is actually better. People don't talk about this enough, but Metric Brawl just made the HTC Thunderbolt. Kind of truth. Yeah, of course you're too poor for that. No one's rich enough for an 8K display these days. But anyway, so I think it is worth calling out. As much as I feel like I want Ethernet ports on the back of everything, I actually kind of do think an Ethernet port in the power cable, or in the power brick, is actually better. Would I buy you an 8K display? I can't even buy myself an 8K display. Who are you kidding? Maybe if my stonks take off big time. If there's a really, really amazing blow up of stonks, maybe. Power over Ethernet, anyone? Yeah, no. Here's the thing I don't like about Ethernet cables, and why I say it's actually kind of ideal having the Ethernet in the power cord, or in the power brick. The reason being, if this device has Ethernet built right into it, what ends up happening is you have then 3 cables running out of the back of your device, assuming you want to use Ethernet as opposed to Wi-Fi. You end up with 3 cables coming out of the back of this thing, and unless this device is moderately heavy, Ethernet cables tend to be, well, they themselves are typically fairly heavy. And don't forget, it also has an HDMI cable coming out of it. That part's a sure thing. Like, there's definitely an HDMI cable coming out of this. So 3 cables are going to come out the back of it, 2 of which are fairly heavy, and Ethernet cables have a classic history of almost always being folded in a way that causes them to kink. So unless this device is pretty heavy, it's going to want to be pulled off of any surface by the cables. That is a great reason why you really, really don't want more cables plugged into the back of this than you have to have. It really does lead to making it more apt to falling off of whatever surface you put it on. And a lot of times, depending on where you place a device like this, it means that you also end up having cables, just like unsightly, ugly cables running to the device. So if you don't need that throughput, then it actually makes a lot of sense to put the Ethernet over your over your USB-C and just feed the data that direction. Because a device like this probably shouldn't require a ton of power to run. logically, you don't have to. You shouldn't have to dedicate too many wires to power. So as a result, the smart bet is run. I mean, you could run gigabit. Well, you can look, almost anything you stream, gigabit's easily going to cover. And you can run, without even a question, you can run gigabit over USB-C. That's a breeze. So realistically, if you can plug any typical Ethernet into a power brick, you can easily run power and gigabit Ethernet over that power brick to a device like this, and you're good to go. Curvy, your ISP throttles stream on Wi-Fi so much that Ethernet is the only thing that keeps the stream going constantly. Yikes. You're only 50 megabits per second for one 4K stream. Right. Yeah, you don't have to go anywhere close to a gigabit in order to stream fairly high quality video. Oh boy, Brawl. Get it off the bed. At the very least, get it off the bed. This is such a wild story that's emerging. Dude, just find Crisis, run that. Let's put this thing out of its misery. But anyway, the possibilities for this streaming box also do leave me wondering. Now, I know that they're redesigning the remote. That's been pretty well established so far. The streaming box is redesigned. Obviously, this begs the question of why is it bigger? I've heard different theories. I've been the source of a couple of them. I like some of the ideas, like, well, I like and dislike some ideas. So I've got mixed opinions about turning this into a wireless charger, though I like the idea. I don't like using this specific form factor for it. Just because of that slant. That slant looks like it's enough that it's going to screw with, like, it's going to make some devices want to fall or slide off of it. There's other devices where if you put them on, like, it's going to be really hard to line up a charging coil with your phone. It wouldn't even really fit if you tried to use it with tablets. Not that a lot of tablets have wireless charging, but you get the idea. Anyway, yeah, I feel like this isn't good for wireless charging. I could see the expanded size being a factor for heat dissipation. In truth, you could probably kind of do that by just putting a fan on almost any size device, but maybe they wanted to go with fanless and a large surface area for heat dissipation. Truth of the matter is, these devices already don't take a ton of, like, they don't release a ton of heat. So I'm not sure how much they really needed that, unless they're adding something that's going to produce heat. And in general, if this is a streaming first device with limited game playing ability, fact of the matter is, video decoders tend to be built into hardware, at least for, well, AV1, H.265, etc., etc. So logically, you don't have a high heat output, or shouldn't have a high heat output from those. And those have already been done on older Chromecasts with Google TV devices, notably in a smaller form factor. So it was already possible. People were already doing it. And I don't think anyone's heard enough stories about these things crashing and burning. So I'm not really sure what the purpose of making this larger is going to end up being. And for that reason, I'm kind of looking forward to the Made by Google event, where I'm reasonably confident they'll discuss this, and I think we're going to get an answer. I want to get an answer. Why is this thing so wide? But until then, I don't think we're going to hear a whole lot. The design is just to troll Apple AirPower. I believe that. I like that. Metric Brawl. If your house burns down, we'll hear it on the news. Let's do this thing. And don't actually do this thing. Stop trying to burn down your house. Anyway. Also, Curvy Mermaid saying for emulators. And yes, there could be enough power to run an emulator, but I mean, strictly speaking, there is definitely enough power to run some emulators. I wouldn't bet on this being a big power boost over previous set top or previous dongle devices. Anything that was already running Google TV, I think is probably going to have about the similar power levels to what this ends up being. I don't think that this is going to end up shocking everyone as suddenly the world goes, ooh, wow, that's super powerful. It won't be. I think that this is going to be a moderate price, maybe slightly high end of moderate, where I don't think it's going to be that. I think at the most we're looking at something just over $100. Do I expect that to be what this costs? No. Honestly, unless there's something really special, I'm expecting the highest this is going to cost is probably in the ballpark of maybe $70. And even then, I think that might be on the high side. I think we're gonna see something that looks cheaper. Okay. Actually just gonna pull the headphones off because they're warm. And this room is actually turning warmer faster than I thought it was going to. Okay, that kind of helps. I just moved the phone around. Or sorry, not phone, the fan. And it's not making a big difference to audio, so I think it'll stay there. What's a new feature that we want for Android? To run iOS apps. Too soon? Okay, no. That's actually an interesting question. I don't know that I could really come up with an answer. Yeah, I don't think I really have an answer. If I was gonna pick anything, I'd say maybe full system theming. Oh no, wait, never mind. I know exactly what I want. Replaceable, like the same way that you can replace the launcher. I want to be able to replace the notification shade. That's what I want. Replace notification shade wholesale, because I think the stuff that some developers could do is infinitely more interesting than any of the stuff Google has done. Let's see. Device sync notifications. What I'm sure you mean is if you clear a notification on one device, it gets cleared on another. A feature that used to exist back in the old days before Firebase was a thing, and now is long, long dead. It does not work. And yeah, I want that back too. Let's see. Curvy, you'd like to be able to restore your text from Google One Backup. Yeah, that's actually, yes, that would be a pretty good one. I haven't had that particular problem. At least I've always, as far as I can recall, I've always been able to restore my messages. But yeah, it really does seem like certain things don't work reliably or very consistently. That's one of them. What if this was designed with Stadia and the second gen controller in mind? But why? The dongles did all right. Like, what was the Chromecast Ultra? That wasn't even that good of a dongle. And yes, it had some heating problems, but that was a pretty old device, and that was able to stream Stadia just fine, setting aside the heat issues. All things considered, they can do a better Stadia now, and if they design this for something like that, frankly, I think that the current Stadia, or sorry, the current Google TV 4K could already do that. So yeah, I don't think that was necessary, or that this device would be necessary for that. So yeah, I struggle with this one. I do. I don't think that there's a good answer for why this device in this form factor exists, unless they've got some sort of either antenna technology, or maybe they're really trying very hard to design something that's just different. Don't know. But I would like to, I am looking forward to an answer, and we're going to get one in under a month. So, yay. Hopefully 120 hertz support for GeForce Now. Good luck. I do not see that coming. Maybe I'll be wrong. I'd be fine to be wrong about that, but I have a funny feeling 120 hertz is not going to be part of the plan. Nice meme. I like it. Let's see. Running a Celeron, jeez. Dark days, my friend, dark days. You're running between 1 and 0 frames per second. So what you're saying is it's half frozen. Let's see. Someone sent you a party invite. 500 hertz support win. Oof. No way this thing will run anything above 60 hertz. I agree. Well, mostly I agree. I think there's a possibility that it's capable of 90. I don't think they're going to run it out of the box at 90, but I wouldn't rule out a possibility it will support 90. Let's see. Okay. Sorry. Just quickly reading those and checking out one other thing. Okay, so is this going to be a good device? Is anyone planning on buying it? I'm expecting they're going to have some sort of a sales pitch for this to explain why it should exist, but I'm very much waiting to see what that is. I'm not holding out a lot of hope that this is going to be some spectacular device. Rather, I have this feeling it's going to end up being kind of a mid-range streamer. Maybe it'll even be on the like semi, pro side, where it might take over for the Chromecast with Google TV 4K, and then that gets shifted to the down market position. Basically, is the cheaper of the devices, but I don't think we're going to see anything crazy. That being said, again, we can't see the back, and until we do, we can say there is hope for an SD card slot. And somebody admit it. It'd be kind of neat if you could just load movies onto this thing, or load movies, TV shows, whatever, onto an SD card, and then just pop it into the back of this, and woohoo, you have local media. I don't think it'll happen, but one can dream. And Austin, yeah. Will you buy it anyway, even if... Yeah. No, and look, I've got some store credit too. I'm not immune to the possibility. But that being said, I still don't have a single Chromecast with Google TV device, and I feel no motivation to get one. That being said, if this turns out to be a good device, I might feel enough motivation to actually pony up for it. Because I think, and I could be wrong on this, but I think the NVIDIA Shield has to be getting very close to its end of life. Which the mere notion that it has not already been EOL'd many times is still kind of crazy. Remote still looks cheap. Oh, I'm sure it is. Let's see. Brawl. You filmed some footage of the smoothness of Minecraft. Gotta log into old phone because you forgot that I got hacked and changed password. Okay. Anyway, so since the temperature in this room is actually going up pretty fast, which I really didn't expect. For some reason, it's warming up quick. You'd love a premium remote. You still got the Stadia controller for that? Oh no. Oh, Austin. No. Is the old controller that bad that you'd rather use a Stadia controller? Be honest. Like, is it that bad? Because I've never held the Chromecast with Google TV remote. And I've heard it's cheap. I fully believe it's cheap. That nothing about that's really a surprise. But seriously, please don't tell me it's that bad, because using a game controller is so unpleasant on those interfaces. It's not terrible, but it feels too light. Okay. That I can believe. Symmetric brawl in your house. Wow. Austin, you bought a silicone case and it made it better? Really? Somebody made silicone cases for the Chromecast with Google TV remote? That's somehow hard for me to picture. That remote should not cost enough that it's worth putting inside of a case. The D-pad button isn't very tactile. Okay, that part I completely believe. Because I kind of remember it was the Daydream controllers. They had their big round button thing, and that was not good either. So if by any chance these two were made by the same company or the same parts buyers were responsible for choosing the D-pad, yeah, I 100% believe that it wouldn't have good tactile response. It wouldn't feel like good to click. It's that same feeling. You also put a magnet under the battery compartment so it can attach under the coffee table. Okay, that's kind of cool. And Brawl, yes, that's actually what I do with the NVIDIA Shield. So, for those who don't remember, the original Shield controller, well, the original Shield came with a game controller, which most people didn't use until the regular controller died, and it came with a regular, extremely thin controller. Now, the neat part about these was that they were rechargeable. The bad part is that the Shield would turn out to last so long that the batteries inside of its controllers, remote and game, both ultimately died of old age. And in many cases, like, the ports just went bad. Eventually, I had to give up. Like, the Shield controller, the slim one, was just dead. And the cost of buying a new one was outrageous. It was like 70 or 80 bucks. It was way too high. So, anyway, I eventually gave up on that controller. And yeah, I just moved to using my TV controller because, hey, it's what? HD, or no. HDMI CEC, if I remember. I think that's the right stack of letters. Thanks to HDMI CEC, I could just use my TV controller, and it controls the Shield perfectly, or almost perfectly. There are a couple very specific scenarios where it doesn't work, and when those come up, my phone remote, I just connect it to the Shield instead of to the TV, and it works perfect. You remember doing almost the same thing as what you're doing now back in 2018, but instead of a Celeron laptop, it was your mom's cheap Huawei phone, and it ran about 3% faster, and it still exists on YouTube. This is going to some weird places. It really is. So we're back at the Nexus player. Yes. Everything, history repeats itself. Everything shall be as it once was, yet again. But yeah, the Nexus player remote was hot garbage. Like, one of the worst remotes I've ever held, for sure. And if they end up with that again, that's on them. You know what would be kind of a dumb but mildly neat project? Take a Nexus player and just for giggles put wireless charging coils inside of it at the top, because it would make an okay charging pad. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's also terrible. You shouldn't do this at all, but there's a small part of me that feels like that could be fun, or at least funny. So, let's see. Anyway, yeah, I think last topic I'm going to hit, and this happens to be the title for this one. We're going to talk just a little bit about good old Crowdstrike. So, if you are interested in following all the details, here is here's a link to The Verge where they posted basically an ongoing or semi-ongoing story of what happened, all the events as they occurred. Wow, they even made it to a second page. Jeez. So, as some people may recall, because this made tons of news, on Friday, because stuff like this loves to happen on a Friday, basically half of the world's major businesses all went crashing down in some way, shape, or form because they were using Windows with a really with a business-focused antivirus, anti-malware software suite. That suite of software is called Crowdstrike, or I believe actually Crowdstrike Falcon. Crowdstrike Falcon. This is basically an enterprise-level anti-malware package. It sends out updates pretty much once to, I think, twice a day. Plus, they can send out like emergency updates in case anything gets detected and turns out to be a really big deal. So it is your typical antivirus software, except, credible. People generally feel better about that, at least on the enterprise level. But yeah, things went horribly wrong on Friday when they pushed a content update with basically some new lists of malware. And that content update, turns out it kind of destroyed itself and computers on the way. What it had done is it introduced a bug where there was not technically corrupted memory, but rather it was trying to read from memory that had not been properly assigned, or rather not assigned at all. There was nothing, quote unquote, nothing there. And since it was basically reading in malformed data, it would cause the system to kernel panic and crash. This was technically not Microsoft's fault, but it sort of is. It was definitely CrowdStrike's fault because they weren't testing these updates properly. They do test updates, but not as thoroughly as anyone would expect or like them to. And if you really want a little bit more, not a lot more, it doesn't get super detailed, but if you want a little bit more background on this, check out this article inside the 78 minutes that took down millions of Windows machines. Now, for reference, millions of Windows machines. It was, if I recall, 8.5 million. Yeah, 8.5 million Windows machines. And remember, these are not just Windows machines. This isn't the computer that's sitting at your receptionist desks. This is this software that they would use, CrowdStrike. This is the sort of thing that would typically be designed and intended for use in basically like enterprise level servers, or well, anything from enterprise level servers all the way down to a kiosk. It's actually not that uncommon for something like this to be installed to a kiosk. They I assume, I could be wrong, but I'm willing to bet any company that is putting this on a kiosk has probably worked out some deals for cheaper coverage, or cheaper per installation coverage. But this is it impacted those on Windows laptops at your company that updated. Interesting. So they're rolling this out to, or some companies are rolling this out to, at least I'm assuming the developer teams, which actually makes a lot of sense. It's not the sort of thing, like CrowdStrike doesn't really market to end consumers. It's more that they market to a business. Part of their pricing, at least from what I recall, part of their pricing was as I Okay, can I just find their company website? Okay. Let's see. Their view bundles and pricing. Let's see. What do their bundles and pricing look like? Oops. Okay, so yeah, enterprise. There you go. That's what their pricing looks like. Annual price, the cheapest you can do for, well, let's go to small business. The cheapest, actually that's not as bad as I thought it would be. The cheapest you can do is $60 per year per device. That's it's not bad, but it's not as cheap as, say, McAfee or Norton, Kaspersky, any of those. I could be wrong, but I think most of those are like $20 to $30 a year. You don't think IT differentiates between developers and non-developers at your company in terms of OS updates? Yeah, that's certainly possible. They don't want malware on any of their computers, anything that's going to touch their networks. So yeah, I could see them doing this. That said, I would bet almost anything that they have negotiated better prices. As I look at this, I kind of wonder. So they have the setting, or the section for small business, which they say Falcon Go and Falcon Pro. And notably, Falcon Pro is $100 per device per year. Then you pop over to Enterprise. There's Falcon Pro, same price. Sort of feels like they could have just done this as one screen and indicated that the Falcon Go, indicate that this is just for small business. Above Falcon Pro, they could have said small business and enterprise. And then for enterprise, just those two are the other options. Like, it's not that crazy of a thing to have just compiled this down to one page. But hey, whatever. Web design is my passion. Hashtag. Anyway, so Falcon Elite. Of course, you can also get the high-end premium service, which can only imagine what that costs when you contact their sales team. But that being said, I'd also bet somewhere in here you can probably just contact the sales team and say, yeah, so we need to cover 1,000 computers. What's your actual price for that? And at that point, I bet they have much, much friendlier deals. Front-end team was moved to back-end. Yep. Metric Brawl. Make you install Norton now. Only if you really hate that computer. Well, we know you really hate that computer, so yeah, actually just do it. Put on Norton. Do it right now. Norton antivirus. It is. Sorry, but that is malware. Slows down your computer. Doesn't do anything good for you. Keeps trying to extract more money from you. Admit it. Norton antivirus is malware. Anyway, so this brought down tons and tons of computers. For the most part, almost everyone was back up either by the end of the day or somewhere pretty quick over the weekend. This is just one big McAfee ad. No, I think McAfee is just as bad as Norton. They are both equally avoidable. But yeah, and unfortunately, Kaspersky is not good either. Yeah, not anymore. That used to be the best. I remember the days when Kaspersky was like the best antivirus you could ask for. Too bad those days are gone. But anyway, So Crowdstrike, uh, I, they managed to figure out a fix for this, a relatively quick fix. They pulled back the content update that they had initially rolled out, instructed users on how to enter safe mode, and a file that they should go delete, or maybe it was a whole directory, whatever. But basically boot Windows into a safe mode, go to a certain path, and delete some files. Once that's done, lo and behold, it'll start back up, works okay, and you are good to go. Your computer will no longer crash. In the meantime, it would just crash basically every time you booted, because their stuff is broken, or was broken. I'm sure it still is, just in ways that they have not yet discovered. And they are now blaming some so-called test software, which was basically like, if you read about it, the story is pretty straightforward. They were just trying something slightly different, or a slightly different version of their own software, their internal software tools. And it turns out that a bad content update was rolled out. Oh good, I'm being reminded, like I said, I'm just getting notifications left and right. I'm being reminded that it is time for me to verify my Play Store account, my Play Store developer account, which I don't really see that I'm going to do that. But we'll see. I don't know. I might, but I kind of don't want to, because I don't really want to publish apps under that account. And which kind of sucks, because that means that the money I spent turning it into a developer account is basically wasted. That was over a decade ago, so I don't care too much, but still. Yeah, Austin, I'm actually kind of okay with that. And if I remember correctly, you don't lose the account. It just makes it so you can no longer publish apps or updates. Carson, you have until this weekend to push an update to your app to keep the account alive. Wait, are they doing that now too? Are they like killing accounts if you don't push updates to apps? I hadn't heard that, because I certainly have not updated my account in forever, or pushed an update in forever. I am actually really curious about this. Let's see, just out of curiosity. Let's see, Android developer. See, you can tell I haven't used it in forever, because oh hey, there's there's that link I was looking for. Not to this, but here we go. Play console. You sent it to game streams, man. Okay. If you plan to publish or maintain apps in the future, prevent your account from being closed by completing the following tasks. If you haven't done so yet, verify your email address and phone number on the account details page. Okay, that's easy enough to do. Create and publish an app, or publish an update to an existing app on Google Play. Fix this before July 29th, 2024 to prevent your account from being closed. If you need, why would I have not gotten this? I'm actually really curious. Why would I not have this as a warning or complaint? Yeah, I'm even looking in my so-called inbox, and I don't see this. I don't think I've gotten... I'm pretty sure I've never gotten anything about this to my email either. Okay. I will have to look into this later, because I am curious. That being said, I don't know. Maybe I'll keep this account alive just by pushing the occasional sort of semi-private app or goofball app. But quick, make a watch face. No, for real, I've actually toyed with... Oh, so it never got released. And at this point, it would require some updates to make it releasable anyway. But, fun fact, I actually did make a watch face. And I was running it on my own watch for a while. And I did it in partnership with Liam Spradlin. Some of you might remember him. He was the guy on Android Police who did a lot of design-related articles. He covered a lot of leaks, and just generally speaking, one of the legit good ones. He eventually went to go work for Touch Labs, and then a couple years later, I think it was about a couple years later, Google acquired Touch Labs, and in the process, they basically took on Liam. Liam went to work in the Material Apostle Liam. Yes, that's exactly it. He went to work in Google's design group, their design group basically. He's done some talks at Google I/O, so on and so forth. Anyway, back when he was at Android Police, we were toying around with various things having to do with material design, and it started as a joke to do a watch face with the various, I think it was with the M release of Android. I might be wrong on that. But we were joking around, how about making a watch face that rotates through each of the different desserts that people think M could be. And so we came up with a list. He made his own versions of them, and yeah, it just became a watch face that basically just had these little custom backgrounds. It was simple. It was kind of a kitschy idea, and I was building it out to be something a little bit bigger than this. The idea was going to be that it would get regular, like maybe not monthly updates, but that there would be an ever-growing library of different things that would pop in. Maybe like themed collections of stuff, so on and so forth. Anyway, I know I saw the code for this not too long ago, so I know it's still somewhere around, but it was designed for Android Wear 1.x. It was never updated for 2.0, so it would not really be usable today, but it was a neat idea back then. Let's see. Brawl. Time to make the laptop suffer less. I mean, you were talking about putting antivirus software on there, so I don't see it suffering less. Let's see. Oh, you're gonna max out Minecraft Bedrock. Nice. But yeah, anyway, one of these days one of these days I should probably get in touch with Liam and just ask, like, hey, would it be cool if I just release the stuff that you did for that? Because it's not like they're gonna get used any other way, but he made some great, nice vector art for just the various desserts, which it would be kind of cool for people to maybe see and put somewhere. Or maybe I'll release the watch face as it was, and I don't know, just ideas. So yeah, let's see. Oh, and just for reference, apparently my date to verify my developer account, yeah, they say the developer profile and apps will be removed from Google Play. I don't think that they close your account if you don't verify by then. Because if I recall, once you verify, it just restores your profile. That being said, oh wait, you can now delete. Why can I not delete one of these? Oh, that one was removed. Okay. So since you can now delete apps from your account, that's okay. I was gonna say, like, in a small way, I'd almost like to let this date elapse, because there are a few things on here I'd actually be okay with just letting them disappear from the account. But I forgot you could actually delete stuff now. Okay, anyway, enough of that. That's not super relevant right now. So let's see about CrowdStrike. I'm feeling at this point like I've almost lost this thread. Back when Android was fun, yes. Android has lost its thread too. It got about as boring as the actual yearly updates. You know, don't get me wrong. Cheers to a mature OS version, but man, there's nothing interesting coming out of Android these days. It's a full second delay between you moving and it moving. Nice. All right. Anyway, suck down some water since I've been talking nonstop. I would make some tea, but it's too hot. All right. Anyway, so CrowdStrike, this time for real. So at this point, and this also, I wanted this on because I figured it'd be kind of interesting to have some back and forth between me and Corbin, but we're kind of in that place where I'm just gonna do a bit more of an abbreviated thing. I think oh, there was one other part of this story I wanted to specifically target, and admittedly this is a little bit of schadenfreude, but let's see. Yep. Okay. So on Monday, Delta Airlines canceled over 600 flights. Pretty much everyone else was up and running by then. Delta was still in total disarray, and they were canceling flights. They have actually, to their minimal credit, and yes, I'm saying minimal, even though this sounds like it's going to be outrageously expensive, they have promised that they are going to cover travel-related expenses for anyone that they displaced. Now, truthfully, because I've had encounters with Delta, I know other people who've had encounters with Delta, I'm just going to predict that's a lie. They will cover some amount of cost, but I guarantee that outside of reimbursements and probably some amount of like vouchers or something, they're not going to cover full travel costs. They aren't. It's not going to happen. David came out to say screw Delta. Based, bro. Based. Anyway. God, Delta sucks. I'm not going to retell my Thanksgiving story right now, but just know I have it ready to tell at any time, Delta. Give me another reason. Give me a reason to tell that story again. Let's see. Also, could CrowdStrike get sued for this? Yes. In fact, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that CrowdStrike will not be around in a year. which I know that's kind of a lofty prediction, but they just killed many billions of dollars worth of income and cost. So many companies, banks, it's the list is right here. Banks, airlines, TV broadcasters, supermarkets, and even Starbucks. Yeah, they all, well, not necessarily all of them, but a lot of them crashed. And they crashed severely. Many of them were inoperable for a day or more. Now, for some companies, that's okay. For a lot of companies, this is devastation. This is outrageous cost. That not just in the amount of money that they could have made and didn't, but in the amount of money that it's going to cost them with their customers. Some of these companies are going to get sued because they had outages. They in turn are going to sue CrowdStrike. Not only that, but how many of these companies do you think stay with CrowdStrike after this? And don't get me wrong, CrowdStrike after this is probably going to be so careful. They're probably going to work so hard to fix this, but they're going to be so dead in the meantime. They're going to get sued 100%. There's actually almost literally nothing that can stop that. Even their terms of service actually spell out that they do not owe anything. They do not take responsibility for any damages or problems that occur. And I believe they even have in there something about not being sued over stuff. Gross negligence, which by the way, this counts as gross negligence. When you read further into the details, which I could try to summarize in more detail. I already kind of did earlier, but once you look into and read about the details of this, it is gross negligence. They actually were not doing a very basic thing with their code. Put simply, they weren't sanitizing it. They were not checking that their content updates were safe. That is gross negligence by any reasonable definition. They failed horribly. So yeah, they're gonna get sued. And I think any attempt to prevent a lawsuit on the basis of oh, you've got arbitration agreements and you can't sue us for this reason or that reason, I guarantee every company that is big enough is going to say, no, we can sue you. We are not going to go to arbitration. We're not going to goof around with this stuff. Look, we have lawyers who made sure that we put those same clauses in, and they know exactly how far those clauses can actually be held. And we're still going to sue you. So yeah, that's kind of where this is at. That there is no chance at all that CrowdStrike does not get sued. Now, how much it's going to cost them, whether or not they win, that question is going to be years out, probably. In the meantime, I think the thing they need to worry about, and I know this sounds crazy, but I think the thing they need to worry about more than that is just retaining customers, because of the 8.5 million computers that went down because of this. How many of those are run by companies that are now saying, all right, purchasing department, what options do we have? They're asking, they're looking, they want to find a better option who doesn't have a reputation of having just done this. So yeah, I guarantee every competitor to CrowdStrike right now is, oh boy, are they throwing every bit of marketing at trying to attract the customers that CrowdStrike previously had. So this is a big deal, and CrowdStrike will eat it for this. Can't wait till they have a congressional hearing and they have to explain any of this. Oh yeah, no, this is gonna get real ugly. That said, honestly, like, the funny thing about this is, in a congressional hearing, they're gonna get asked the same 10 questions. Honestly, I look, I predict it right now. They're going to have time for every. Let's see, is this hearing in front of the Senate or the House? Anyway, whoever it is, they're going to have, every single person is going to have their few minutes of time to ask questions. And they're all going to be asking their aides, what questions should I ask? Every single person is going to get the exact same recommendations that are all based on the fact that most of their aides only know basics about antivirus, which is effectively, there's Windows antivirus, or you could go with one of the paid ones. And they're going to talk about content updates, which are pretty basic subscription concept things to them. And they're probably going to ask a few questions about how is this allowed to happen. And that's about it. And then after that, you're going to get a whole bunch of morons who don't know anything at all, who are going to try to ad-lib questions so that they have something to do during their time. Which is how you end up with someone asking Tim Cook about their Android phone. Or, actually, that wasn't the question. There was it somebody asking Sundar about his iPhone? I don't know. It was something. Yeah, that's what it was. Somebody asked Sundar Pichai about their iPhone. Anyway, yeah, it's going to be the generic questions. Carson, yes, that sadly is probably true. I almost wish you hadn't said that, because you personally just made that a thing in the world, and it will now actually happen. In fact, oh no, I can't believe I'm about to say this. How did this, or was this a secret plot to cover up the fact that our current POTUS is in hospice care or no longer alive? Did they bring down the world's computers to hide that information? I'm kidding, of course. I do not believe any of that stuff. That is stupid, crazy, right-wing conspiracy talk. But it is funny because that was also that was the story that was going around this last couple of days. Because while computers were no longer running in some cases, the crackpots had decided, forgot to involve Bill Gates. Who said I forgot? You know it's true. Anyway, yeah, this is, oh geez, how do we live in a parody? We literally live in the parody. So anyway, let's see. If time machines become a thing, you're definitely going back to 2009 to tell Steve Jobs about his Android. Yeah. So anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, so Delta in particular was still basically non-operational into Monday. I'm pretty sure Delta's going to be suing the living crap out of CrowdStrike. There were a few of the smaller banks, from what I understand, that were actually still struggling, at least as far as Sunday, I think into Monday for a few of them, mostly because a lot of their IT people weren't back, and they, like individual people they might have had working, but because the manual fix for this usually involved booting into safe mode and manually deleting files, for the most part, a lot of the companies had to go through and basically delete. They had to delete this off of each individual running instance. Now, to be fair, a lot of companies actually did have a different option for this. Because, like, with a lot of companies, what they'll do these days is they set up effectively a virtual machine template. All they have to do is, if something goes horribly wrong, and this when I say this, I'm talking about for their individual servers. So what they can, in many cases, do, they're running them inside of the virtual machine. They basically just run a script that reloads the virtual machine from their templates and fires it up. They go through some sort of like 15-20 minute spin up process, which would include downloading these content updates for Crowdstrike. And basically, once Crowdstrike fixed their stuff, a lot of companies could basically just spin up brand new versions of their servers, and an hour or two later they would have been operational and they wouldn't have had to go through all their instances to fix this stuff. But yeah, that's not going to be the case for everybody. A lot of them had to do much more manual processes. Evidently, Delta being one of them. So I'm going to bring up what I think the other casualty of this is. Windows. Now, part of the problem was Linux and Mac machines were not going down. Now, I don't know how much CrowdStrike does in terms of antivirus or anti-malware for those. In fact, does it say on here? Because as I recall, they do cover all the different platforms, right? Let's see. Where would it be hidden? Platform service. Okay. How about Falcon? Do we have? Okay. I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to find it too easily. How about Falcon Mac OS? Let's see. Okay, so they do have it for Mac OS. So the remaining question is, how about Linux? Oh, hey. Whoa, apparently some Linux systems did go down. That's kind of surprising. That's really surprising. I didn't think that... supposedly rumor had it that it was only Windows. So what I was about to say is, I have a sneaking suspicion that what we're going to end up seeing is a big... because of the way that Microsoft requires... Or not requires, but because basically all the antivirus software out there insists on making kernel extensions or kernel drivers that are used for security purposes. What I think we're going to end up seeing is a lot of people shifting to Linux for their servers. Like, once this happens one time, you start kind of getting panicky. A lot of companies start looking at the end results and saying, you know what? A lot of other companies are doing fine with Linux. Maybe we should try the same. And the argument for running Linux versus Windows these days is getting weaker and weaker. The argument for running Windows as opposed to Linux. Like, there used to be a time where setting up a Windows server, because of the time spent on maintenance and the amount of stuff that Windows kind of does for you, 2025 CapEx equals year of Linux. Jeez. They should run Chrome OS? Dear God, no. Anyway, I think we are genuinely going to see a lot of companies pushing away from Windows and towards Linux, not because there is any particular genuine reason to do it, but because this reputation just just sort of struck a chord. This is probably going to scare a lot of executives into saying, all right, you know what? Windows got a bad reputation out of this. I'm seeing in the news that it was Windows machines that failed. Let's explore other options. You're going to have some IT admins saying, oh, that's too big of a thing, or it's going to cost too much. And they're not wrong. But I think we're also going to see a lot of companies just flat out saying, you know what? No, we're done with it. We've kind of been toying with this idea for a while anyway. Let's just go to Linux. Sure, it'll have some growing pains. Sure, it'll be some cost, but it'll probably save us more money in the long run, which is probably not true if we're being honest, but who cares? So, yeah, I do think that this is probably going to send a lot of people into panic mode, and people who are IT administrators for Windows I have a funny feeling those jobs are going to start getting a little touchy. Now that doesn't mean that for employee laptops, I think it's going to be the other way around, or not other way around, but I don't think anyone's going to try to shift all of them off of Windows, just because that's too big of a thing. It's going to cost too much, and there's too much of a workload and confusion issue. But I think it's a safe bet that we're probably going to see a lot of servers are going to be shifting away. And whether or not that lasts, who knows? And the argument for even having Windows servers is not the strongest, because if you know the dynamics of it, honestly, they do cost more to run. The companies typically that run them don't care about that. They care more about being able to hire people who are able to maintain and manage them, and Windows machines are typically a little bit easier to maintain and manage. But if there is a panic like this, it's not long before those companies start shifting their priorities. So yeah, anyway, that's kind of where I see this going. I don't think it's going to make Windows Server go away, not by a long shot. It's still definitely going to be out there. There is a possibility that this is going to cause some companies to shift also towards Azure or cloud computing, which does work in some cases. That's actually a really good strategy for some companies. I wouldn't bet on that, though. I really wouldn't bet on it for a lot of reasons. But we may see that. And I think we're going to see a lot more services start going towards, if they hadn't already, I think we're going to see a lot more stuff popping up where it's oh, let's start running everything in Docker images and Docker Compose, which is already really common. But if you can spin up a server and just feed it a script, and it takes 5-10 minutes for it to just spin up and get everything installed and configured, honestly, that's that quick time to restore is what's critical here. And as long as your servers, if you have to do manual maintenance on a few servers, that's infinitely better than having to do it on possibly a whole fleet of servers, which is kind of what this could save people from doing. So all of the comments I'm making, there are so many nuances to them that I'm not getting into, but yeah, I just have this feeling that this is going to start a bunch of dominoes falling. It's not going to destroy Windows. It's only going to push it into a state of more and more people kind of migrating away. Sorry Microsoft, but I think you're probably going to lose in the server, specifically in the enterprise server market. I think Microsoft is probably going to, over the next few years, lose probably, my guess, 5 to 10%. At the high end. I don't think it's going to be overwhelming, but I think at the high end they're probably going to lose 5 to 10% of their market share in the server market, because too many people are going to look at this and freak out. Because was this a Windows only problem? No. But it's a Windows dominant problem. Linux, it's a lot harder for a situation like this to happen, because you don't need it to happen that way. You could run a lot of this stuff in cloud, and well, frankly, then it's on, the problem is then on the cloud main managers to fix it. And if there's downtime because of them, well, you can usually sue them for it. And practically speaking, even on Mac, like, it's harder to have things like this crash a Mac. Not that I think anyone's going to be rushing to run Mac servers, but you never know. We know Apple is starting to toy with that idea. So who knows? We might be seeing Apple Silicon in the cloud someday soon. Let's see. Brawl. Still want to see if a modern day server can run React OS server. Okay. Windows Server 2012, my beloved. Hey, look. Windows 2000, which strictly speaking was a server OS. It was the bomb. It was so good. Even Windows Server 2003. They did that so well. Look, I know, server OSs, but man, stability was crazy good. Uh-oh. He poses something in RambleCast. Oh yeah. Sorry, I forgot to talk about that. Yes. Is that... Oh, The Verge didn't add it to their roundup of stories. But yeah, Crowdstrike. This feels like it's got to be a joke. But okay, I'll just load it up in here. So supposedly Crowdstrike is offering a $10 Uber Eats gift card as an apology to clients. Let's see, that's TechCrunch said it, so Uber Eats Crowdstrike. Oh wow, that auto completed. So obviously people weren't believing this. They've been searching for it. But oh no, it's true. I'd heard the rumor. I was kind of thinking it might be bogus, but okay, so yeah, this is possibly one of the stupidest things they could have done, because this is basically saying we don't give a crap. Like, we're just gonna like mock the fact that you just had the worst crash in history because of us. Yeah, we're just gonna mock you. This is, they're begging companies to sue them. That's the, yeah, it is a middle finger. Exactly. This is too stupid to be real. Which is exactly where I feel like our world is right now. Too stupid to be real. We are living in the parody. This is their thoughts and prayers. Oh God. It is. Yeah. Wait. Did they not even... did they even offer a cheaper one in the UK? Oh no. This is so good. Oh yeah, hospitals had to halt surgeries. Yeah, that was... I forgot about that one. Seriously, there's no way this company can be taken seriously after this. And that's part of it. There's no way to take them seriously. Oh yeah. So Metric Brawl. This is something a lot of people don't know. A lot of the equipment in hospitals. Now, obviously, hospital management is already a problem. They use a lot of Windows machines for, like the receptionist desk has for sure Windows machines. They're using it for check-in and stuff like that. But the equipment, no one talks, or very few people really know or see any sign of this, but a lot of the equipment is actually using Windows. So like the X-ray machines, which I actually have personal experience. I know for a fact that this is true. The X-ray machines made by almost every company out there, I believe, run on Windows. Like the computer that controls the X-ray machine. The X-ray machine itself doesn't run Windows, but there's a computer on the other side of the wall. That computer has to run Windows. It is a requirement. I'm not kidding. And typically, it has to run a specific version of Windows. This is because for let's see, it's FDA. Well, for FDA requirements, which the FDA covers medical equipment, which I know sounds kind of weird, but it is. It's a thing. They basically, you have to go through this testing procedure and document every test. You have to document every feature. You have to document every function of software. And in order to do this consistently, you have to specify like what versions of Windows or what version of an OS you can run the software on and things like that. Anyway, because of this, a lot of them or a lot of the companies basically spell out a computer has to run such and such version of Windows. And in a lot of these cases, the companies sell that computer along with their equipment. So they're selling a license to Windows. And obviously that software, that whatever software they made to run that equipment. So yeah, a lot of hospitals are running these really old, outdated versions of Windows on this equipment. And for very good reasons, most of them are not connected to the internet. So many good reasons, because let's be honest, I guarantee there'd be, before smartphones really caught on enough, can you imagine how many nurses would be in there probably just looking stuff up on a browser if it was connected to the internet? Anyway, so what ends up happening is the companies don't go through like an update process with their stuff. And by update process, I mean they don't sit down and say, okay, well, a new version of Windows is out. Let's go through and make sure that it's that our software is compatible with this version of hardware that we previously made. So instead, what typically happens is a lot of these installs just sit there on the same version of Windows for the rest of time. And this increasingly becomes a problem when let's say an X-ray machine eventually becomes, the X-ray machine will still be fine, but the computer that's running with that X-ray machine usually kind of wears out. Like the hard drive crashes, or some components go bad. Maybe, even down to like monitors die, and you can't get a new monitor that plugs into an old port. Like this sort of stuff actually happens. Believe me, I've heard some nightmare stories of it. So companies, we're actually getting into a problem where a ton of companies have like old outdated medical equipment, or sorry, a lot of hospitals have this old outdated medical equipment. The equipment's still good, the computers are dead. so they're having more and more trouble getting computers that can run the software. And it's a disaster. Austin sharing a picture to the RambleCast chat room. This is exactly it, and I can recognize that even in low resolution. That is some Windows XP stuff right there. So yeah. Yeah, you're still using an old CRT, and I mean, from the look of it, that's not even a flat screen CRT. That looks like it's got a little bit of a bubble to it. Am I wrong? Or is it at least flat screen? Either way, you can tell that has a fat back to it. CRTs are cool. I'm not going to get with you on that. By the way, low key, I actually do have an old CRT underneath this desk. I think it's just the one. It's a bubble CRT. Oh, dude. Because they did make flat screen CRTs. That was a thing. It just wasn't it wasn't common enough. Anyway, yeah, so I feel so much sympathy for you. Anyway, but yeah, this is a thing. I mean, look, I worked at a company. That particular company made X-ray film, and when I worked there, they were still running, I believe it was Windows 98. I could be wrong on that. It could have been 95, but I'm like 90. Well, let's say 98% certain it was 98. It's been long enough that I don't fully remember, and I'm pretty sure it was 98 second edition. Yeah, but I could be wrong on that too. I never actually checked that I recall. But yeah, they were running their equipment for the manufacture of X-ray film on an old version of Windows because that's the only version that could do it. Legally speaking, they could have updated the version. It probably would have worked, but legally speaking, they weren't allowed to. Part of the reason that I actually worked at the company was I was hired to go in there and update a lot of software so that it could run on newer versions of Windows CE, which at the time was used for some hand scanners, and a couple of other things. And I did in fact do a little of that before those projects were canceled, and things went all kinds of bizarre directions. I will restate the thing that to this day angers me immensely. I was promised that I would not have to write Visual Basic code. I was promised. I specifically brought this up during the interview process. I asked them if they, or rather not asked, I told them if they want me to write Visual Basic code, they should hire somebody else. That's not something you tell during an interview if you want the job and assuming that they care about this. And they promised me, no, you're going to be writing in C#. I think the most C# I wrote, or I think I only wrote C# for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. All Visual Basic after that. And we're not talking VB.NET. We're talking Visual Basic 6. That company, criminal. They're evil. Anyway, so I'm just reflecting on the trauma. So anyway, right now okay, look, I should bring this up because I said earlier, a lot of those computers are not connected to the internet. but that doesn't mean they aren't connected to a network. A lot of hospitals are running two networks. One of them that is connected to the internet, and another one that is entirely internal. So a lot of these machines are connected entirely to the internal network. Now, whether or not they have anti-malware software on them, debatable. Some of them probably do, some don't. It's unclear. But they're hospitals, so logically, just in case, they probably do want to have something that is going to protect them. You hope they had Crowdstrike on Windows XP. They might have. You say there's no defending Windows CE. You know what? No, I will defend Windows CE. Only because, in its time, that was the most... That was as close as you could get to a functional mobile OS. Was it dog crap? Yes. But I will defend it because it was as close as you could get to a functional mobile OS. And it did become Windows Mobile. I mean, Windows CE did become Windows Mobile. Period. It was a rebranding with a bunch of other stuff. Until 2007. Yeah, basically, yeah. Yeah, 2007, iPhone came out. Boom. You've got something that was better. Yeah, that's right. And then it was very shortly after that Android came out. Windows Mobile had the better UI. Well, yeah. Windows CE laptops, they don't count. The Windows CE laptops is like putting Android on a server. These are not things that anybody ever should have done. And I don't know how much that was ever like really an official thing. I know some companies did it, like it, but that was a weird offshoot. Nobody does that. Austin, your IT department told you that internet pushes 10 times more data than our internet at work. Oh, the internet pushes 10 times more data than your internet at work. What does that mean? What did they say that would lead to that? Also, I just noticed the comments earlier. There was a floppy drive that you still use to transfer data. Funny enough, the floppy adapter once broke, and you had to manually transcribe data sets. Did they give you overtime pay? Who? Why? Why? At that point, you know what? At that point, I would have been... I'm not even kidding. I would have been taking pictures of the screen and using, like... I would have been using OCR. I would have used OCR to try to do that faster. You got that government money. No, what the hell? Manually transcribing data sets? Oh, that's so dumb. And is there no USB? I mean, is there no USB that you could have used? Like, you had to use floppies? How old are these computers? Oh, geez. Anyway, there are other ways that this could have been done. There had to be. But okay, anyway. So, in practical terms, there I imagine a lot of hospitals still probably had some computers that either aren't covered by CrowdStrike or they don't get their updates from CrowdStrike servers, which would be good news. Um, Generally speaking, in those situations, what's happening is they have what is effectively kind of like what's it called, a border network. That's probably the wrong term. Anyway, what a lot of them will do is they'll have servers that are connected to the internet so that they can get the CrowdStrike updates, and then those servers are available also on the intranet, and the device, all the devices that are only on the intranet can contact that server to get the content updates. So it is possible that a lot of stuff that was on intranets and only had access to that, like they have no outside access, there is a decent possibility a lot of them were also still getting the CrowdStrike updates, which would have brought them down too. You have film camera for such case. Wait, what? No personal phones. I didn't. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. And no USB. Jeez. Okay, could you? I know that this feels like the dumbest thing to have to ask, but I have to ask. Could you have not taken the hard drives out? Take the hard drive out of the computer with the data set, physically walk it over to another computer, open up the back, stick it in, and drag the data off of it manually. Could you have not done that? And I'm even as I say it, I'm just picturing somebody probably saying that like it'd be illegal or there'd be a liability issue or like we're not allowed to open the computers for X number of reasons. I could totally see that. Oh, you know what? I said that without reading the couple lines down. I'm skimming this as I talk, and I see that you then brought that up. So we're thinking the same things at the same times. But yeah, there had to be other ways to move this. Film cameras. Oh God, this is so painful. Just the notion of transcribing big data sets is just madness. Anyway, yeah, this is the world we live in. A lot of stuff feels like parody. But yeah. Anyway, so it's weird because having done that job at that company making X-ray film, yeah. Anyway, that job has become such a good source of reference material and anecdotal stories about systems that have to stay perpetually outdated. And this is because of FDA. Why do I keep wanting to put a C at the end of it? Because of FDA requirements. Yeah, there's no way around it. You have to, in some cases, not all, but in a lot of cases, you have to have strict version of Windows support. Today you almost screwed up your Windows fonts. Windows fonts are screwed up by default. You can screw it up more, but they are screwed up by default. Also, I just noticed that these pliers, some of the teeth are messed up. Oh well. So yeah. Anyway, CrowdStrike. You know what? I've lost any concept of where I was in this rant about CrowdStrike. And somehow it's 45 minutes later. So I think it's probably a good time to just just end by saying, wow, what a mess up. Um, and raise kind of the interesting question, what can companies do about this? Because this is to me the last remaining topic that it's it's kind of a side topic, but what can companies do about this? And I feel like what this is really begging for is to break every single thing down into smaller pieces, which, by the way, this is already kind of a common thing with a lot of internet companies. But break all of it down into smaller pieces, possibly generally turn them into Docker containers, and just have sort of a rebuild process that can go as fast as, try to optimize a rebuild process, but basically build a process that can get you from point A to point B in as little time and effort as possible and across as many computers as possible. That way, when things go horribly catastrophic like this, in theory, you should be able to get stuff back up and running. So this, I mean, things like this should obviously never happen, but they're going to happen. This is sort of like, we should not have a worldwide pandemic. We should have had processes to stop some of that or manage it better. And technically we did have processes to do that. They just got thrown out by the current administration. But to be fair, that's also just one country. There are other countries that also should have better processes, and they didn't do it either. And that was a virus, effectively. Or, well, it was a virus. This was not technically a virus, but it behaved a lot like one in the fallout, or in the form of its fallout. Practically speaking, I think what this just demonstrated to a lot of companies is they have to start planning for anything. They need to hire a person whose job it is to sit there and look at every piece of software that they're running, every computer, whether it's on the servers, the employees, everything. Look at every piece of hardware they're running and ask the question, what happens if something catastrophic occurs? How do we recover as quickly as possible? Can we recover as quickly as possible? Because not all software is built inside the company. You don't know when someone's going to screw up. You don't know when a bug or an error goes horribly wrong. Look, we're in the year 2024. I was around for the year 2000. I remember on New Year's Eve hanging out with some people, including a network IT administrator, who look, we all were just standing around kind of joking, like, hey, if the world ends tonight, here we are, let's good old Y2K. It occurs to me some people will not have heard of this, but in the year 2000 there were actual genuine concerns. Please tell me I'm over explaining this. But in the year 2000, in the year 1999, there were genuine concerns because a ton of software had been written so that in order to save space, a lot of the years were written as just their last two digits. So instead of including the year 1999, they would just be written as 99. And so a ton of software was about to flip around and start using 00 as the date. It was really dumb. But strictly speaking, most of that software had been written in the 80s, which just goes to show using outdated software and hardware has always been a thing. We as a society have been phenomenally good at doing this, and also bad about doing it. So it just keeps happening. But the thing was, in 2000 or in 99, on New Year's Eve, a lot of people really just stood around, they crossed their fingers and hoped for the best. And did things break? Yeah, a few things did. Most stuff didn't. A few people, yes, absolutely actually did get billed weird amounts by their power companies. There were people whose very legitimately, there were some phone services that actually did go down. There were random things here and there that went down, but for the most part, almost everything was tested and worked out, and generally companies kept their stuff functional for the next, or through that, and if they detected any problems, most of them were not catastrophic. So they got it sorted out. And good for them, as they should. Then, over the years, we've had this progressive trend where we found ways to sort of mitigate these problems. We found ways to sort of improve on things. But at the end of the day, every few years, there's a new catastrophe that takes things down for anywhere from hours to days. Sometimes, in rare cases, even weeks. It happens. Look, it's sort of like everyone jokes about it, but what happens if AWS goes down? Like all of Amazon Web Services. What happens if AWS goes down? Well, there goes 30% of the internet. It's true. What happens when Cloudflare goes down? Technically, a good chunk of the internet's up, but you can't reach it. A lot of it is unavoidably, like, it just, Cloudflare is a big chunk of the internet. What happened? Remember the time when Google, or think of every Google outage that has ever happened. What happens? Chaos. Absolute debilitating chaos. Over and over again. It happens. I mean, the big stuff happens about once a year. The small stuff happens a few times a year. Logically, we cannot have that. So, we need to have better strategies for this. And some of those better strategies are probably going to be just admitting that chaos is going to happen. Things are going to blow up from time to time. Servers are just going to come crashing down and become heaping piles of blue screens of death. The strategy is not necessarily to focus entirely on preventing it from happening. Sometimes the strategy is just face facts, accept it's going to happen, and say, how quick can we get everything back up and running with all brand new everything. That's important. It is. It just genuinely, truly is. So sometimes that's what has to happen. So with that, to those of you who work in IT in any capacity, hey David, good luck, because I would be shocked if you don't eventually have somebody asking you, hey, got any input on this? And you're probably gonna end up ultimately having to say, I don't know what we could have done about it, but let's talk about it. I don't know. That's the best input and logic I can think to say on it at the moment. And tell them that a random podcaster told you that was the answer. They'll appreciate the wisdom. Wow, and Brawl has typed a lot into chat. I've been trying to read it, and I read some of it, but keeping up with all of it was a challenge. So I'm just trying to skim. I see the stuff about Windows Security Essentials would have been better because it wouldn't crash because it isn't updated anymore. I suppose you're kind of right. let's see. There's a new Y2K every few years. Yeah, there is. Which, Linux has its big Y2K issue coming up in, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it 2036 or 2035? Something like that. Which, by all accounts, that's beyond solved. Like, they saw what happened. They saw what happened and were like, you know what? We're just not going to be chumps. We're going to fix this today. So, it will be a non-issue by the time it gets to them. Hopefully. We'll see if it actually is. You never know. Let's see. Can't wait for Android goes down in 2036. At least he's not on fire. I mean, he is typing on a keyboard that's practically on fire, so you never know. Okay, anyway, I should probably call this a wrap, because, hey, honestly, I came into this with not that many topics. I thought this was going to be like an hour 15 show, and here we are at 2.5. Did pretty good. I'm going to call it a win. Okay, so anyway, let's see. This weekend, what is the plan for this weekend? Looks like Saturday and Sunday are going to be right around 80 degrees. So there should be game streams. I think I'm going to stick with this do it in the morning strategy. I don't know that that's the best, but I think so. So yeah. And as far as start time, honestly, like, it does depend a little bit on when I wake up. So I will see you, some of you, certainly around for some game streams this Saturday and Sunday morning. Some Fall Guys, some Overwatch, that's basically the plan. And I will be back next week, presumably with a Corbin Davenport in tow, for another RambleCast. And as usual, for those who would like to support the channel, there are links down below to Cash App, Streamlabs, and Patreon. And of course, huge thanks to I was about to say Costin. Sorry. Huge thanks to Austin, Carson, David, Diablo, and Kirby Mermaid. Y'all are awesome. Great supporters of the channel. And let's see. As usual, thank you all for coming by, hanging out, being part of the conversation, keeping me chatting with the chat room. And I will see you in the next one. Good night, everybody.